That doesn't show here. That doesn't show here, live on stream.
That is only with him, sir, control. Live on stream, live on YouTube and Facebook is with him. Shankar, ready to go?
Ready, sir?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very warm welcome to our another edition of Evening Talk. I know you have been continuously engaged by MMA since the time lockdown was put in place. Please stay safe. Our idea is keep engaging our members so that you don't keep looking at the news and get really worried what's happening around you. So, we start the day in the morning at 7:30 with yoga. Thereafter, we are sending you a quiz. Because the numbers have grown beyond 500, we are giving you 2 links today so that we don't want anybody to miss that live quiz every morning. It's become very, very popular with us. Our idea is to kindle your thought process in the morning. And again, 11 o'clock in the morning, we have every day a talk for you by interesting thought leaders. Thereafter, we also, from 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock, we have a number of workshops lined up for you. And we are reaching out to number of education institutions, only exclusive program for the students. Then in between, as a tiffin, we send you some business puzzle which you can solve them. And also we are sharing with you some interesting articles every day in the afternoon so that you get something different view, different perspective. Then evening, again, we bring in you some outstanding thought leaders. So idea is to keep you busy, keep you engaged, and please keep sending your views, share your views, and it'll be always a scope for improvement, everything what we do. Yes, we are also beginners in social media in terms of bringing you live on the Zoom, and we do air, but at the same time, our endeavor is to bring you some high quality programs all the time, and we have been getting good feedbacks, and your feedback is very valuable to us. Coming to today's event, a post-COVID idea, 3+5 guidelines for building companies into institutions. Now, the topic itself is very interesting, and you're all wondering what is 3+5 guidelines. And we have got one of the outstanding speakers who is going to be talking to us on this. And COVID is the biggest challenge towards for the as a leadership issues, and for the humanity also biggest challenge. How we handle this challenge will set the legacy for us for the future. It's a cast gloom over a lot of future issues, and we have to be very, very careful. Many a time we are really worried. I know the leading industries today shared his view. Sometimes I do watch television to get some input so that I can share with the speakers what exactly we wanted. He said, why should industries close down? Look at all over the world, they open industries partially. They also, one thought said, between 21 and 60 are the people who are healthy, not affected. Above 60 are the affected. So we should set those people to go. And they got the one points because they don't want anybody to really go without a work. And they also talk, many of the SME sector, which supply them large industries, are in deep trouble. And when we talk about the finances, the availability of reserve finances, not rich cash reserve, small companies, they're always live hand to mouth when with the limited resources available with them, and how they are going to give salary to the people without earning revenue. So the number of issues are happening. We don't find any solution. Only we can tell the thought leaders to give their views and ideas which may kindle your thought process and start thinking something differently, innovatively, so that. And lockdown periods is this is a way what the speaker today is going to tell you is how do you self-introspect and what you can do differently. Then, because the person who think differently is going to do always well. And good CEOs, business institutions, shapers a long life, and we're going to be talking about some of the best people who have shaped the businesses. And there are 3 eminent professors from SPJMR who have joined with Mr. Gopalakrishnan in bringing out this lovely book on giving some great insight. And the shapers who will be sharing today by Mr. Gopalakrishnan will be Mr. FC Kohli and Ramdurai of TCS, Mr. Anil Naik of L&T, and Kiran Majumdar Shah from Baikan. Before I introduce the speaker, and many of us keep asking me, what are the programs lined up for MMA next few days? Let me briefly tell you what's happening. Now, on tomorrow, 23rd of April, we have a busy day for you. We have a morning 11 o'clock, 7 success mantras for Instagram. So Dania, she's going to be talking to us from USA. She's a fashion designer, specialist in Instagram, and outstanding. So Instagram, she's going to tell in 4 different ways: education, entertainment, and media and business. How is going to really help you take your business to the next level, and how you go to brand yourself. This is happening at 11 o'clock in the morning. Please don't fail to log in. At 6 o'clock in the evening, COVID lessons learned for the future. And this is none other than former bureaucrat and seasoned senior IAS officer, R Shivaraman, former revenue secretary, is going to be talking to us on this. And at 6 p.m., they're dealing with known on the 24th April, 6 p.m., dealing with the known and unknown by Mridula Ramesh. Mridula Ramesh is from the TVS family. She is a director of Sundaram Textiles. She'll be talking how companies are looking differently to look innovatively. Like so many companies are making equipment for COVID, and they're also doing some innovating. A lot of people are making ventilators. So she's also specialist in environment. So we're going to have a very interesting talk by Mridula Ramesh on 25th April at 6 p.m. We are going to have another interesting talk, Be a Diamond in the Sky, by Vijay Parsardi. He is a management guru and authority on branding from Bangalore. He's from IIM Ahmedabad, and I'll be more than happy to listen to him because he's going to really talk to you how you enhance your brand in the difficult time, because you are all the time working, worried about what is the lost business and what is the deferred businesses. So better look at the deferred business than the destroyed businesses. What is the outcome of this going to be the talk? Then 27, we also thought quite a bit of thing is going on. Our data all moving online. How are you going to be securing yourself? So cyber security and the implications. We got two outstanding specialists from cyber security joining us, Navi and his partner from Bangalore. So there's going to be a discussion on cyber security at 11 o'clock on the 27th morning. Then 28th evening, again, every time we're bringing you talk, presentations and COVID. We also thought we'd bring something unique. So we have a unique musical evening for you. It will be a live musical evening, management and music. Music really soothes you and relaxes you. And when you sing along, it's going to be more interesting. So GD Sharma and his team, called Uni Nair and another two of our colleagues, are going to be joining us. Live music, please do enjoy. 28th evening, 1.5 hours of musical evening we are going to bring it to you on 28th evening. Then on the 1st of May at 11 a.m. we got again very, very interesting talk by Mr. Sharan Subramaniam, MD of Roche Diagnostic, along with is a partner of Sagar. We're going to be talking quite a lot about what is the vaccine, what's happening in the medical institution, those things. Then on 30th of thing, we got a Swamiji, head of Ramakrishna Math from Ahmedabad, from Rajkot. He's been talking to us all about self-management and stress management. And Swamiji's authority has delivered a number of lectures. You can see him, Swamiji, head of the Math from Ramakrishna Math, Rajkot. Then another interesting program on the 2nd May evening, Bharat Bala, the gentleman who has produced some Vande Mataram, some outstanding movies which really impacted so many individuals, along with the World Silambam champion, Aishwarya Manivannan. She will be talking to us, success story how it was done. And Aishwarya is a World Silambam champion. For the 3,000 years of Silambam, Bala has made a film on Silambam. That is going to be spoken to you on the 2nd of May. So we are lined up some interesting events for you. So please don't miss it. Join us for each and every program so that you will get something. Do send your feedback. And I think Mr. Gopalakrishnan doesn't need a really introduction for MMA audience, actually. He's a part of our team and he's also part of our mentor, well-wisher of us. And let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Gopalakrishnan. Mr. Gopalakrishnan is an author, speaker, corporate advisor with experience spanning over 50 years. He spent 31 years of his service in Hindustan Unilever Limited, where he went on to become a vice chairman. Then thereafter, 19 years, he is director of Tata Sons. Now he is also executive chairman of Castrol and independent director with MS Holdings. And he is also executive in residence of SP Jain Institute of Management, Mumbai. And distinguished professor of Kharagpur. Can you put up the audio, please? Whoever is doing that, Shankar, I request you to put up the audio, please. Authored 9 books, notably A Comma in Sentences, 6 lenses and doodles on the leadership, and many other books on which we have the privilege of hosting Mr. Gopal to come and speak to members of MMA. And he is one leader who we all can walk miles to listen to him. And he's going to be talking to us on this important subject today, a post-COVID idea 3+5 guidelines for building. And we are all and for a great evening. Just before handing over the session to Mr. Gopal, let me also remind you, if you have any questions, please put it in your chat box. All the viewers who are watching the program live on YouTube, live on Facebook, and live on webinar, there is a band which is coming to you, the number, to which number you can SMS your question or WhatsApp your question, and Facebook and YouTube as well, you can share your question. Our team will collect, and Mr. Gopalakrishnan has kindly agreed to answer all your questions. Please send your question to a chat box. Let me also now tell all the people, about 35 people have joined. May I request all the 35 people to warmly welcome Mr. Gopalakrishnan with a hi. And I will now hand over the session to Mr. Gopalakrishnan, sir. We're looking forward to hearing you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vijay. It's a great pleasure to be back in MMA virtually. And I would like to begin by congratulating MMA for adopting this very novel method of continuing its professional service to its members. I wish you all the best for the future. It is actually difficult times for the country, and it is wonderful as a citizen for all of us to see how many people and organizations are helping the poor to mitigate the devastation that has been forced on them. Everything done is fine, but it is not good enough. And yet, it's a paradox that every act by a single individual or a group of individuals or an NGO is so valuable. This is a great human spirit, and along with all my audience, I would like to celebrate this tremendous national spirit that everybody is demonstrating. I hope our society and our nation, indeed all of mankind, can escape from this without too much mayhem and pain. There's already enough pain. Now, as a byproduct of this, some of us more privileged people who are able to stay in homes and are not worried about our next meal, we are flush with thinking time as never before. Especially if you're an executive in a firm, you never had this kind of time to think about your company and your future. So the suggestion I would really like to make is this is a very, very valuable time for you to think about how you will behave differently and contribute differently in the company that you will rejoin, in whichever format it may be, virtually or physically, in the course of the next few weeks when the matters ease up a bit. And I want to, therefore, in that context, share one idea with you. There must be several ideas, but I will only keep myself to one idea. And the idea that I want to share with you is, can you think about how you, as a manager, can contribute to helping your company go from being a good company with a good CEO to becoming a great institution, a business institution with resilience, led by shapers of institutions. If we think that this is the job of the CEO and other people need not apply their mind to it, I think we would be mistaken. And it is in that spirit that everybody can contribute to this. And I will demonstrate that in a few minutes by talking about the companies that we have studied. So that's the idea that I wish to share. Now, can I have the chart, please, the next chart? I've used two words, institution and company. There's a big difference in my judgment between a good company and a business institution. A good company is run by a competent CEO, but a business institution is crafted by a shaper. The shift of emphasis requires a change in the manager's mindset. Now, if you see on this chart that is displayed before you, on the left side, it says, what is a happy society? To define a happy society, one looks back to philosophy. And in philosophy, it's stated that you need enterprise, because it's enterprise that generates wealth and economic activity. You need education, and I use the word education not just in terms of primary, secondary, and higher education, but in terms of advancing culture. And the third thing that you need is a Greek word called eudaimonia. The Greeks use the word eudaimonia to signal well-being, a sense of happiness, contentment. When all these three are combined in a society, then you get a happy society. And this is what everybody is striving to. In our own country, we are striving for this. When J.R.D. Tata was awarded the Bharat Ratna, and people said, do you desire India to become an economic superpower? He said, I want it to be a very happy country, and the economic superpower will follow. So that sort of illustrates what I mean when I talk about happy society. Now, we need business institutions because in our country, we have what I call Gen C institutions, Generation Centurion, the Tatas, Godrej, Birla, TVS. We have very few Gen L institutions. I'm making a distinction between Gen C and Gen L. Gen L represent institutions or companies that flowered around just before or during or after liberalization. So I'm not going to talk today about Gen Z institutions, but that will go back 150 years. I'm looking for companies that have grown up and flowered under our nose. Go to the next chart, please. Now you have to, in your imagination, figure out what is an institution. And to trigger your imagination, I want you to compare the Red Fort in Delhi with a modern bungalow in Golf Links or in Annamalapuram. I think the image of a Red Fort is very different from a bungalow. If you look at the Victoria Terminus station in Mumbai and compare it to Khandala railway station, you again, Victoria Terminus railway station is grand and Khandala is not. The Taj Mahal in Agra, if you compare it with a Kabristan, a normal common graveyard, you get the difference between what is an institution and a company. So, as the last row in this chart says, an institution carries the image of being grand, of being awesome, of being durable, as compared to a good company, which symbolizes something which is nice, adequate, and pleasing. So, this is the distinction. Whenever I use the word institution and company in the rest of my presentation today, you must have this imagery in your mind. Now, go to the next chart, please. Now, I am associated with the Bhavan's SP Jain Institute of Management and Research here in Mumbai. It's one of the finest management institutes in the city and in the country for that matter. And the faculty at Bhavan's are fantastic teachers. I mean, I've heard some of them and I think they are capable of doing a lot of thought leadership. And one day we had a discussion in which I raised the question, do you really think there's a difference between a good company and a great institution? Now, being academics of some considerable accomplishment, which I am not, they went through all the literature that was available and they produced a fat document of all the research ideas and papers that they could put their hands on. And that gave an opportunity for a very unique collaboration between a seasoned practitioner like myself with some very seasoned academics. Normally, management books are written by either academics and consultants, or they are written by practitioners in sort of self-praise or about their biography, autobiography. Well, this one is a collaborative effort between myself and academics. And we put our heads together, went through all the literature and hypothesized. We conceptualized a particular thing which we called an MBA grid. MBA does not stand for Master of Business Administration. It stands for mindset, behavior, and action. And I shall explain that in a moment. And in the course of our further thinking, we consciously decided that we would leave out Tata, Unilever, TVS, golden oldies, because we wanted to interact with the person who made the change in that company. And in the case of these old Gen Z companies, the oldies are not available anymore. So we've been working on this for over 2 years now. And there are 3 teams. I work with one professor and there are 3 different projects. And we have recently published, Rupa, the publisher, has published 3 books. The first book is co-authored with Dr. Tulsi Jaikumar, and it is titled, How TCS Built an Industry for India. And as you know, the TCS story, which I shall describe briefly, it has happened all in the last 50 years. The second book is co-authored with Dr. Sushmita Srivastava, also a faculty at SPJ. And that book is about Biocon, India's one of the finest biocon technology companies, headed by a lady entrepreneur, which is very rare in many parts of the world, including our own. And we have studied that with us. And the third one is a company that was founded, Larsen and Toubro, maybe 70 years, 80 years ago, but has really taken off and come into the public consciousness when Anil Nayak became the chairman and managing director in 1999. And that book is called How Anil Nayak Built Larsen & Toubro's Remarkable Growth Trajectory, and is co-authored with Dr. Pallavi Modi. As you can see, they are all PhDs. I am the only illiterate fellow who is not a PhD, but we've enjoyed working together, bringing practitioners' ideas and academics' ideas together. What we aimed for is a very slim book. It is only about 120 pages, 130 pages. And it's very easy read. It's not heavy, pedantic with jargon. You can read it on a flight when flights resume from Bombay to Calcutta. And it's a very easy read, but then it will be a rich enough read in its content that we think readers will want to go back and savor it like a glass of wine to understand the true meaning and implications of what has been written in it. That's our hope. Therefore, of course, you can't get the books now. There are no flights, but you can buy it on Kindle. All these are digitally available now. And I hope, will get the same pleasure out of reading it as we have got. Now, it is rare for a collaboration of this kind, and we had to sort out who's going to do what. I must give the credit to my management academic partners who have done a lot of the research and the interviewing. We conducted over 100 hours of in-depth interviews, not just with the shaper, but with the shaper's associates, with employees, with stakeholders. And so we got a very 360-degree view of what the shaper's actions are. And then we have arrived at a certain hypothesis, which is what I want to talk to you about today. There was an American philosopher, science philosopher. His name was Thomas Kuhn. And Thomas Kuhn made an observation. He argued that scientific breakthroughs happen when a researcher observes the world. When a researcher observes the world well enough to identify and explain an anomaly. If there's an existing rule, the researcher finds what is in that rule that doesn't seem to work. There's an anomaly. And having explained the anomaly, it gives scientists the opportunity to revisit the theory to better understand it. So that's the way science has always progressed. And we think in a small way, in our own small little way, we have done something similar. We have developed a novel view for companies in the Indian cultural context. There are lots of American books, Good to Great, lessons from the topic, innovative companies. But there are not much Indian literature in our cultural milieu, and culture does make a difference to the way companies operate. So we think we have arrived at a novel, I wouldn't call it formula, that's why I've titled this subject Guidelines. Some ideas. And as we go along in the future, we hope this will inspire people to experiment and arrive at their own rules. And the theory that we are putting forward will get modified as we go along. And that is what good management research should be all about. Hypothesize, experiment, improve, rehypothesize, and so on and so forth. Now, I want to tell you what is this MBA, Management Behavior Action Grid. So it is very difficult to describe this without some chart in front of you. So can I request the next chart, please, to be put up? No, you have not put the other chart that I sent you? Hello? Sundar?
1 second, sir. 1 second, sir.
That's better. You know, the first chart that is put up is a copy of what is in the book, but that's not very legible on the screen. So I've got a Word document here, which is easier for you to read. I hope it's easier for you to read. I can read it because I'm familiar with it. Now, what you will see in this chart is what we have described as the Shaper's Mindset Behavior Action Grid, MBA grid. You will see 3 columns. The first column in deep blue is called mindset. The second column in a lighter blue is called behavior. And the third column is called action. Whatever is in your mind and that mindset results in a certain kind of behavior and a certain kind of behavior results in a certain kind of action. So the arrow will move from the left to the right. So those are the three columns. Then you have a number of rows. And I don't want to talk about each row right now. I'll come to it in a minute. But there are 8 rows in all. So you have 8 rows and 3 columns, and therefore you have 24 boxes. And this is what constitutes the MBA grid. The MBA grid, which I shall come to in a moment, has arisen out of a hypothesis that we made from the academic literature. We then test validated it by talking to 4 or 5 CEOs, and then we went and interviewed, as I said, the shapers in the companies. Now, to select the shapers, the first criterion was that they should be Gen C companies and not Gen L. They should be Gen L companies and not Gen C companies. The second criterion was, generally speaking, we don't want to be moral policemen. They should have high values and norms for which it is generally greatly admired by stakeholders, by markets, and so on. The third one is that it should have withstood some pressures of finance, business, and regulation. It should have demonstrated some signs of resilience. And the fourth one is its economic and stakeholder returns, total shareholder return and those sorts of indices, ROCE, compares with its peers at the upper end, but it may not be the best. Unlike the excellent studies of good to great, where they showed that the subjects they chose were the best, we said the best depends on how you look at it. You must be amongst the top, just like the person who stands first in the exam is not necessarily the best student, but the person who stands in the first 10 may turn out to be the best student, or the first 5. So we have 8 into 3, and we now then went and selected, and I spoke to the CEOs concerned. In the case of TCS, it was Mr. Kohli and Mr. Ramadure. In the case of Larsen and Toubro, it was Mr. A.M. Naik. And in the case of Biocon, it was Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, who very kindly agreed that they would participate in this research and allow us to publish what we found. Now, I have not told you what are these 8 horizontal rows. I only told you what are the 3 columns. The horizontal rows, the first one says people relations. The second one says short and long-term focus. I'm reading it out because you may not be able to read it so clearly. The third one says critical thinking. I will be explaining these. The fourth one says orbit shifting. The fifth one says breaking barriers. The sixth one says levers of change. And the seventh one says cyclical learning. And the 8th one says stakeholder orientation. So there are 8 of them. Now, in the short time of 35 minutes that we have today, it's not possible to talk about all of these 8 in any great detail. So I shall restrict my comments to the first 3, because the first 3 we found are the most important. If you play golf, you have a number of clubs to choose from. But there are some clubs that nobody can do without. You can't play golf without a putter. You can't play it without a 7-iron. You can't play it without a driver. So those 3 are compulsory. The others, you choose any ones that come which you think is appropriate for the particular shot that you're going to hit on the course. So in the same way, the first 3, and I'm going to restrict today's talk to the first 3, are essential. That's why we call it 3 plus 5. Of the other 5, you may choose 3, 4, or maybe all 5. That's variable. And so this grid appears to be a very important one. The first 3 rows are the most important. The next 5 are extremely valuable, and you'll get a flavor of the whole thing when you, if and when you get to read the book. If you can go to the next chart, Sundar. The one after this.
Shankar, next slide. Thank you.
Yeah. to dramatize the point that we came to, I have put down the distinctive management mindset, behavior, and action points of a business builder, a shaper as we call it, and a normal company leader. The red fort is on the left of this chart, and your modern bungalow is on the right side of the chart. Both are very valuable, but obviously the one on the left is far more valuable than the one on the right. So the first thing is long-term sustainability. The attention span of a shaper is on long-term sustainability of the company. If you have to sacrifice something in the short term to maintain the long-term sustainability, the shaper would go that route. Whereas a normal company leader is more concerned with this quarter's results, this year's budget, solving problems efficiently and moving his team forward. The next one is on the purpose of the company. And the shaper is wired in his mindset to think of all stakeholders of the community, of lenders, of employees, of suppliers, vendors, whereas a company leader, a good company leader, is more influenced by shareholders, not entirely to the exclusion of others, but to a substantive degree shareholder focused. The third one is about thought leadership, critical thinking. And critical thinking is the ability to think of a new alternative when there are alternatives which are patently obvious and staring at you. That's called critical thinking. Whereas a company leader is more interested in finding out the obvious alternatives that are presented, deciding options quickly, and moving ahead. There are some times when people who are indulging in critical thinking say, "Can I think about it? I'll talk to you next week or tomorrow." And they generate new options. Then the learning method. In the case of shapers, they are constantly learning in a cyclical manner. They do things, then they make a few mistakes, they admit the mistakes, then they go back and do it again. Whereas company leaders tend to be linear. They tend not to accept their mistakes. Not that they certainly don't accept it in a public way. And they get on with it in a zigzag way. So one is zigzag and one is cyclical. If you go to the next chart, please. I've got a few more ways to demonstrate the difference between a shaper and a company CEO, company manager. When it comes to change management, they are now this is the only jargon I have, terrain adopted. Terrain adopted means they look at the total 360-degree environment in which their company is operating, their industry is operating, and they take all the factors into account to determine the pace at which they will make changes. Whereas a good CEO will just get on, solve on the go as you go along. Shapers are very particular to carve and nurture people. And I will talk about that in a moment. Whereas I think many of the others are very transactional and contractual. Lastly, to do with motive, I'm going to stop giving the comparison because I think I'm giving you the flavor of what I wish to say. The shapers like to disrupt, but with a planned unpredictability. Whereas the good company CEO or manager likes to be predictably competent. He doesn't like to do unpredictable things. So every company today is caught up with uncertainties. It is not something unique to one company or another. So we felt it would be useful for you as an audience today to listen to some of the life journeys of recently uncovered institutions. And therefore, I'm going to talk first about Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, which is a book that has been authored by Dr. Tulsi Jaikumar and myself. Now, TCS began only in 1968. It's, in that sense, a young company. And it began in a country, if you can cast your mind back to 1968, which suffered from scarcity of food, electricity, infrastructure. Our TCS book describes the company as a black swan event. As you may recall, a black swan is characterized by being very rare. It makes an extreme impact and it has got a retrospective predictability. It's only later on you can say, yes, this had to happen. But at the time it's happening, it is a bit unbelievable that it has happened. Mr. F.C. Kohli, God bless his soul, he's still around and he's 96 just last month. And he's the one who effectively is the founder of TCS. And he had the technical knowledge and the belief that India's computer age is coming in 1968-69. But he could also see the gaps, like a cricketer who doesn't look at the fielders around him, but he looks at the gaps between the fielders. Mr. Kohli could do that. And he could iteratively shape the environment as well as his organization. The initial TCS plan was to import computers at a time when India had no foreign exchange. It was a fond hope. And serve Indian companies to improve their data processing. In fact, I began my career, not in TCS, but in Hindustan Unilever, as a computer analyst and as a software programmer. So I know that. I've intimately experienced that particular phase of this country. But it was a time when foreign exchange was short, you couldn't import it, and even a public sector behemoth like LIC imported a computer, ICL 1903, if I remember right, into Calcutta. They could not even open the boxes because the unions in Calcutta, which were very militant at that time, said you take away our jobs. And LIC could not even open its boxes, let alone install the computer. So immediately TCS pivoted to use the startup language. It changed its destiny by saying we will seek customers outside India and earn foreign exchange. So that's how we'll drive our business. And really, that's a very brief description of how TCS invented, I would argue they invented the Indian offshoring model, which has successfully created a whole software industry today of $150, $200 billion. So by 1996, Mr. Kohli had prepared his successor and handed over to Mr. S. Ramadurai, who became the CEO. And his protege, he had sort of nurtured Ramadurai under his nose. And TCS at that time already was deriving 90% of its revenue from abroad. It employed 8,000 people. And you can imagine when I talk of Gen L companies, that only 25 years ago, this company, which today has 500,000 people, was 8,000 people. And its revenue was $160 million. It had, however, engineered profitability into its DNA. Because Tata Sons, which is its parent, was not particularly interested, as today's venture capital PE people are, to keep funding losses. So Mr. Kohli narrates the story that he went to JRD Tata and said, just give me 4 crores, I'll never ask you for money again. And to his credit, that's what he has delivered. He took 4 crores from Tata Sons and he has delivered whatever he and his successors have delivered, everything that you see since then. So Ramadurai was a CEO between 1996 and 2009. And TCS multiplied its revenues and employee strength many-fold by riding the Y2K opportunity that arose. And what TCS did was to convert software development into a factory-like efficiency, literally. So from an artisanal sort of shop where clever people wrote code, it became a sort of a factory with precision. And Ramadurai was very bold in presenting to his customers a service promise, which said, never late. The IPO of TCS happened as late as 2004. Many people forget it because today it's a bellwether stock in the market. And it started at a valuation of $2 billion. By now, of course, through its frugality, efficiency, and its replicability and scalability, TCS enjoys a market capitalization of $100+ billion, depending on which day's stock price you take. And it, as I said earlier, it employs 500,000 people without the fuss of. Nobody's ever referred to TCS as a unicorn. They didn't know what that word meant. And so they just on the quiet went and did their job and became what they have. Now, there are some lessons that come from the TCS experience, which you'll find in the book, which I'm referring back to the MBA grid. The first is people relations. Shapers are obsessed with people. And even today, you talk to Mr. Kohli or Mr. Ramadurai. I'm not covering Chandra and his successors because the trend has been continued. They're constantly nurturing skills and expertise. They recruit people who have expertise in some particular area, and shapers see this as the highest priority of what should occupy their time. I talked in the MBA grid about short and long term, balancing both. This is a counterintuitive mindset. Many people believe that they have so many things to do today that they don't have time to think about tomorrow. But really, the shapers are people who have managed to combine both. And a very good example of this in our day-to-day lives is a mother who's raising a child. Mothers are remarkable insofar as they are able to deal with the baby's immediate problems without ever forgetting to dream and plan on whether the girl or the baby or the boy will become a cricketer or a musician later in years. And the third, in the 3+5, the third one in the 3 part is critical thinking. And critical thinking refers to the ability to generate a new option when obvious options don't look quite satisfactory. And the one that I would mention in the case of TCS is the decision to create a software factory. It was an unknown thing in those days, but they had been working on this when they were faced with this problem to handle such a large number. I think 650 million lines of code can be handled in the Chennai facility of TCS at that time. And so by the time Ramadurai retired, of course, he had left a very smart company which meets every criterion of being a shaper company and an institution. The next company I would like to touch upon is Biocon. I'm being extremely brief and concise in the interest of time and to leave you a little time to ask questions. Biocon is interesting because it's founded and nurtured by a woman entrepreneur. That too in a field of the future, biotech. I mean, she started in 1978 when I don't think the word biotechnology was really understood. People didn't know what it meant. And here's a woman who's a Gujarati origin, Kannada speaking, Australian trained female entrepreneur. She's a brewmaster actually. She went to Australia. Her father was a brewer and she went to learn brewing in a very male dominated, brewers work in beer factories. And she learned this art and came back and looking for a job. But she's a highly networked person. She knows lots of people. And one of her Australian classmates recommended her to be the Indian business partner of an Irish company called Biocon. So she met, and then I'm not going to describe all the details in the book. One thing led to another, and a joint venture was formed here with the Irish company, and there was a Biocon India as a subsidiary of Biocon Ireland. A number of things happened after that. Essentially, she bought up Biocon Ireland. So it's the child who bought the parent, as it were. And then they went on displaying critical thinking, nurturing people, and people relations. And Biocon is now a clutch of companies. I think it's 8 or 9 companies. But they all share a common parentage. But they operate as a federation of independent companies. Now, in the book, you'll find questions answered like, how did this happen? And it's happened in the last 35 years. How did the Indian progeny of the Irish Biocon end up buying the parent in Ireland? How did this disruptor company become profitable early enough to nurture other companies? Here again, nobody called it a unicorn. There was no venture capital funding of the kind that you find today. And this company was founded on a very robust technology called koji fermentation, a solid state fermentation. And Kiran realized at some stage that she could be a big fish in a small pond because she perfected this koji technology. But there's a much bigger pond where fish are swimming, which is called biopharma. And she pivoted. She actually had the courage to sell her solid state fermentation business to a very competent international company and set up and enter the biopharma field, which has helped her company, which IPO'd as late as 2004, about the same time as TCS, just soon after TCS, for $1 billion, but is now worth over $6 billion. And through this pivoting, they now have a biosimilar insulin in partnership with Mylan in the United States. This company is going to launch it in the US. And it will sell a diabetes treatment that will cost the American consumer 10% or thereabouts of what the current treatment is in the US. Now just imagine. C.K. Prahlad, an Indian professor, goes to America and describes what is bottom of the pyramid. And an Indian entrepreneur here in a futuristic technology actually practices bottom of the pyramid by taking an idea to America and marketing it at 10% of the cost of what an American would otherwise pay for it. In each of our books, we have got a chapter called the TCS way or the Biocon way or the L&T way, and that will summarize and bring together all the ideas practiced by the shapers. The last company I would like to talk about is Larsen & Toubro. Many people think of Larsen & Toubro as a very old company. It's not that old. I think it was founded in 1938 or 39. But it really came into the market consciousness and stakeholder consciousness to in 1999, when a long-time L&T engineer, A.M. Naik, became the chairman and the managing director. Now, former managing director K. Venkatramanan reflected when we interviewed him on L&T's orbit-changing strategies by saying, what is today's L&T is because we could move from simple fabrication ideas to nuclear, space, defense, oil, and gas. He said that our construction wing has moved from simple road construction to very complex construction projects like airports and metros. Right opposite my house where I live in Bombay, in Cuff Parade, there is a metro station coming up. I see the L&T board all the time. They're setting up a very complex underground project, as some others too are. Now, what did CEO Anil Naik? No, we do. We've talked of critical thinking, and I would like to take Larsen & Toubro to illustrate this. One of the things that Larsen & Toubro was not getting was very good valuation in the stock market. And it was not a blue chip company. I think, if my memory serves me right, it had a market capitalization of 5 or 7,000 crores around the time Naik became the chairman. And so he said, why do we get such a poor valuation when even a software company or a soap company gets such much better valuations? And then he said, I want to unravel what goes into the market valuation of stocks. So he started a project called Project Blue Chip. Now here's what I mean by critical thinking, of thinking out of the box. And he got the help of consultants and financial people and so on and so forth to say, how exactly does a company create value for the stakeholder? He disassembled it. He did what an engineer would do. He disassembled the whole thing and reconstructed it into its parts, and then had the management argue about how they can increase the market perception and valuation. So it is not a question of making somebody believe you, but actually implementing what is the way the market intuitively works. And of course, he managed to increase the portfolio, the sales, the revenue, the profits by making some tough decisions. For example, don't chase too many small projects. Go for some big projects. Today, the value market cap of Larsen & Toubro is 200 or 250,000 crores, and it's much better than the kind of multiple that it used to earn 20 years ago. The other area where it's worth illustrating Anil Naik's critical thinking is when he discerned the difference between financial ownership of a company and emotional ownership. There was a stage when it looked as though Larsen & Toubro may be taken away by some bigger players. And what Naik did was to understand who's the real owner of Larsen & Toubro. And he came to the view, along with his top team, no doubt, that really the employees are the people who own Larsen & Toubro. It's not some amount of money that they've placed. It struck him like a bolt that if it's emotionally owned by the workers, why should they not also be financial owners? And he set about with his financial advisors and colleagues, the top leadership team, to create a construct whereby the employees now became shareholders of the company. And you can imagine how much alignment it brought. Welfare trust was set up called the Larsen & Toubro Employees Welfare Trust. And as a shaper, he aligned the financial ownership and the emotional ownership of the company into one without parallax. There are also fantastic narrations in the book about how he pored over talent files, how he connected directly with talent, how he conducted training courses of personal counseling directly with young people. So it is not a great surprise that TCS and Larsen & Toubro found successors who were 15 to 20 years younger than themselves when they were ready to hand over to the next generation. Mr. Kohli handed to Ramadurai, Ramadurai handed to Chandra, Chandra handed over to Rajesh Gopinathan in the case of TCS, and in the case of Larsen & Toubro, Nayak handed over to Subramaniam, who is now running the company on a day-to-day basis. This has been a very interesting experience for Dr. Tulsi Jaikumar, Dr. Sushmita Srivastav, and Dr. Pallavi Modi. But we went and asked the shapers, Mr. Ramadurai, Mr. Nayak, and Kiran Mazumdar, how they felt about the project which we had engaged them in. I've got a very short video. It's about 4.5 minutes, all three of them together. And may I play that video to give you and share with you a sense of how the shapers saw our journey.
A business institution is a well-run company with a few additional dimensions. A business institution is conscious of the higher responsibilities that it shoulders. It therefore has national, social, and environmental goals embedded into its agenda, while ensuring profitability and returns to stakeholders. Business institutions participate in endeavors of national significance and contributes towards national goals. On the whole, therefore, India and our 1.3 billion people would be much better off if our industry had more and more business institutions.
Biocon actually has been a unique story because of the fact that it started with one person's dream and then basically grew into a shared vision along the way, with thousands of people believing in this shared purpose, this shared mission to make a difference and make global impact. And really, it is a story of building a biotech company from scratch, from the startup that it was in 1978 to then growing step by step along the way, and in latter years growing its organization to global scale. And the way it was all done, and the reason why we still continue to remain the most successful and the largest biotech company in this country. I think this book actually talks about the challenges in terms of raising capital, grooming talent, accessing global opportunities, global markets, And of course, at the end of it all, it's a very complex set of management tasks that every organization has to address in order to make that impact.
Institution building and living its values in the true Tata way, we have inculcated as a part of our DNA from the early stages. The leadership, the succession plan, and the focus on the customer with the right capabilities and the technology adoption are the hallmarks. The concern for the society in incorporating the stakeholders on a 360-degree basis is what this institution stands for, and the growth has been sustained through some of these value systems and the investments which have been made on the people and the technology. We pride ourselves on this journey of excellence and incorporate it day in and day out. There's always a question, what is the difference between a company and an institution? The company is the beginning which delivers on operational excellence day in and day out and lives the value systems, but the institution incorporates beyond the company to the stakeholders, namely the customer, the supplier, and anybody, including the society, who become part of this journey. That's why it's an institution which will continue to excel, continue to focus on all the stakeholders very clearly and at all times.
Okay, thank you very much for being so patient and listening to my monologue for the last 40 minutes. I hope you got some sense out of it. We were very, very excited to work with these three companies. We've got three more companies left, which is going on right now. Deepak Parekh of HDFC, Harsh Mariwala of Marico, and Uday Kotak of Kotak Mahindra Bank. Those will come to the market in the next 3 months or 4 months. And you'll have a set of 6. And get the Kindle version if you can't get hold of the book because of the current situation. But thank you for being so patient. Vijay, I'm happy to answer any questions for the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes as you have time.
Thank you so much, sir. Fascinating. We got a couple of questions, and we also request all the audience, please type your questions so that we'll be more than happy. Before we move on to the question, it's been a fascinating insight on what the shapers and CEOs, a clear distinction has been made. And before I proceed to the question, I think you should really appreciate Mr. Gopalakrishnan by commenting on the thing. Just type awesome so that I'll ask him the first question to Mr. Gopalakrishnan. Sir, before I proceed to question, there's a question come from one of the students. Large enough students watch this program live. One of the professors returned during the difficult time, MBA, what you rightly put, mindset, behavior, and action. What should the students should focus at this stage, because there's so much of uncertainty, they're not sure about the future. How you think they should, whether there should be a job seekers or job givers, and job givers, the entrepreneurial opportunities are very limited. What's your single piece of advice under the difficult time for the students before I take on other questions?
Well, if they are students, I presume they are management students or
MBA students,
engaged MBA students. It's a bit early for them. They can understand the concept of a shaper, but they haven't had the work experience to really grapple with the issues that are raised in these books. These books were really aimed at somewhat more experienced people, 10 years, 15 years experience. But I would like to answer the question that the young person has asked. I think throughout one's career, one has learned that if you can always think of the value of your contribution to the company exceeding, that is, the obligation that you owe to the company should exceed the privilege you expect from the company, then the chances are you'll progress. I don't think that formula has changed. But unfortunately, very often, we tend to expect our privileges from the company to exceed our obligations. And when that formula, especially in these tough times, works to your disadvantage. So I would say keep the formula: obligation divided by privilege should always be greater than 1.
Another question from a member is, while some enterprises have social and environmental goals along with primary business goals and profitability, we also see some business enterprises which are run purely with goals of profitability, growth, and enhancement in stakeholders' value. Is there anything wrong with such a purely business outlook? Because eventually this also generates employment and provide business opportunity to various vendors and suppliers.
No, there is absolutely nothing wrong. So I hope I don't give you the impression that running a good company by a good CEO is a bad thing. If I have inadvertently given such an impression, please get it out of your mind. I was merely trying to establish the difference between the Red Fort and a modern bungalow. That's all. Modern bungalows are necessary. All of us can't go and stay in the Red Fort or Red Fort like, but should be our attempt to create institutions that last long. I mean, when Jamshedji Tata set up Tatas, or when William Hesketh Lever set up Unilever, I don't think they had in mind it will last for 150 years, but they did certain things which allowed these companies to stay for 100, 150 years. Just like when you raise your child, you don't know if the child will become a doctor, an engineer, a Nobel Prize winner, but you try to do certain things. And then the rest of it, you don't look for the result. So there's nothing wrong in chasing quantified goals, creating employment, making it company profitable. Absolutely right. It is essential to do it. But don't do only that. At a suitable time, you have to do other things. That's all. It's very much like saying, should a parent insist on only getting marks from the child's exams? Well, you must get good marks. Otherwise, it's tough to make it in life. But in addition, you must play the sitar or play cricket or whatever.
There's a question from Mr. Naveen. Why shapers are not given responsibility or motivated to create more business institutions? I mean, they focus only on the seriously involved with the experience.
No, that's a good question. It's like, why didn't Shah Jahan build a second Taj Mahal? I think he would have brought the Mughal exchequer to his knees if he had tried it. And institution building is a lifetime achievement. Mr. Kohli, Mr. Ramadurai, Mr. Nayak, Kiran Mazumdar, they built institution, and it's not something you do in 5 years or 7 years. So, but then post their retirement from those jobs, Mr. Kohli and Mr. Ramadurai have been great servants, if I may use that word, stewards of IT industry, of skill building. Mr. Nayak is very much associated with skill building. Kiran Mazumdar is very much involved with the current COVID controversy and testing methods. So they do larger things than just their company.
There's a question from one of the members is, how different is the MBA grid in relation to the different qualities that are attributed to a leader and to a manager?
You know, the MBA grid is about the company, not about the leader. We tend to make an icon out of our leaders. It's not a one-man show. I happen to mention Ramadurai or Nayak or Kiran Mazumdar because they are the people who changed or helped to change the trajectory. But all of them were very genuine in acknowledging that it was their team that worked, and the way they institutionalized certain practices. And that's why we have a chapter in each book called the Biocon Way, the L&T Way, the TCS Way, which will bring together how to institutionalize it.
There's a question, what are the Indian values and ethos your team focused during your research, on your research?
Well, I don't know if they're Indian values, but we did spend a lot of time looking at the stakeholder orientation. In the interest of time, I could not mention it. It's all written in the book. But each of the shapers we interviewed showed such great empathy and sympathy, not sympathy, empathy, for the social circumstance in which our companies operate. And that's why I say there's two things very unique about this series and this book, that it's a collaboration between a practitioner and academic. And the second is, it looks at these Indian values, nurturing people, for example. It is not left to the HR department. These are people who said, it's my job. So I don't know if it's fair to call it an Indian value, but they're definitely the values of a shaper.
Question from another member. In your views, as academicians in near future could inculcate people orientation and critical thinking to the students, and how to go forward in this?
Oh yes, I think it is something that is occupying the minds of my colleagues who co-wrote, who are my co-authors. I am not an academic, so I cannot argue on this, or I cannot contribute much to this. But it is very much on their agenda to run management development programs to suitably tailor the findings of this book so that it can become pedagogical for students.
So, the Shapers, what one of the members has observed, that all these organizations which you mentioned also had a vision of the promoters, which got meted into down to the line of its cultural intact. So, how you got integrated both the cultural intent of the promoter as well as that of the Shapers?
Well, I don't know if that's a correct statement. Kiran Mazumdar is a promoter, quite true, and we have described in the book how she has imparted her ideas and values within the organization. In the classical definition of a promoter, I don't know if Mr. Kohli or Ramadurai qualifies, right?
Yes.
I don't think they do. And neither does Mr. Nayak qualify. I suspect he didn't own a single share until, as a part of the employee pool, he also got an allocation of shares. And in the next three that are to come out, you will also find that whereas Harsh Mariwala in Marico and Uday Kotak in Kotak Bank may qualify as promoters, Deepak Parekh in HDFC would hardly qualify as a promoter. So I don't think that is a axis on which the question can sit. I think what's common amongst them is their shaping attribute, and that's what's important.
There's a question from Mr. Manish Sinha. Is requested, in an organization as mix of shapers and good organizations, how does one transit towards a shapers, and which path to take?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't want to give the impression that you can have an organization full of shapers. Huh? Don't get me wrong. It's like having an army or an air force where everybody is the air chief marshal. That's not possible. When you talk to people, you give them something that they can aspire to. The first job is to become a good factory manager, then you become the technical director, then you become a CEO, and then you become a shaper. It's a journey. So just like you meet a spiritual leader who may ask you to do Sharanagati and hand over to God, you don't do that when you're 25, unless you're Gautam Buddha.
Mr. Anshuman want to know, what will be the typical framework for a critical thinking and orbit shifting? Since all these are heavy topics, sir, how do we make it simple?
I'm sorry, say that again. I couldn't get you.
Says, what will be the typical framework for critical thinking and orbit shifting? Since all these are heavy topics.
Framework.
Yes. Orbit shifting, and since all these are heavy topics for them, actually, how do we, Anshuman want to understand how do we make simple? I don't know how is this heavy topic, but it's only a.
Well, you have to appreciate what these words actually mean. I would be a genius if I could have communicated the true meaning of these words in half an hour. But I think if you read the book, you'll get a much better idea of, if you read the books. And if you read, there are 6 different books. There are 3 that have come out, 3 are yet to come. You will get a way of the way critical thinking or orbit shifting was interpreted by each person. They are not identical. So if you say, how do you become a good Hindu? Well, there are many ways to be a good Hindu. And if you talk to 10 different sadhus, you'll get 10 different ideas. That's why it's important to read this as a series. The series is called Shapers of Business Institutions. And the idea is not to write down the great qualities of one Alexander and everybody try to follow that. I've got Alexander formula number 1, 2, 3. This is not a formula, it's a guideline.
So there's a question one of the members want to know, Ms. Padmacha. She says, sir, what should be the thinking of the HR fraternity towards reshaping and realigning the training and development program after the COVID-19, because the requirement of training will be totally different. They have to switch over maybe to online, and also there will be so much of lockdown, and whether they'll focus on getting into then. How do you motivate and train the people? What should be the area of focus on trainings?
Since this question has been asked about HR function and COVID, I'm answering it. It's not quite central in what we've done in our book. But one of the things that I have realized is a company is also got to be made immune to invisible objects, just like the human body. And the most invisible object that affects companies is human psychology. And I think the COVID has shown us that if an object is invisible, like the coronavirus, it leaves you completely flustered because you can't see a logical connection between what's the observation and what is the cause. In the same way, everything that happens in a company is sigma, the various human emotions of people. One of the things that HR people can do is to take these ideas of what human resources people themselves have identified, things like employee engagement, things like their motivation, things like do they really, the employee engagement factors for the companies have been declining steadily for the last 35 years. And what is our job as managers? To create more engaged employees. So I think that's the direction I would suggest, from delivering functional courses on finance, for non-finance, marketing techniques. Nothing wrong with it. You must learn all that. That's like learning ABCD and arithmetic in school. They have to move to a higher order of trying to explain human psychology through practical terms, which is one of the books my brother and I are also writing, which will come out later in the year.
Thanks for the great input for MMA too. We'll also focus on similar lines. There's also, sir, this is a little away from the topic what you've spoken. One or two questions come. If you permit me, I will think if you can answer, will be nice. One is, our super organizations such as IMF and World Bank is still relevant under the present scenario?
Well, I don't have a cynical view on this. I have a very liberal view of this. We have to learn to live with each other holistically. And the fact that there may be failures on the part of WHO or IMF or World Bank is a case to reform them and improve them rather than to abandon them. And therefore, while I agree that there may be limitations in there, it's like you're living in a building society. Okay, there are 100 people in the building society. Now, the definition of a cooperative society in Mumbai is that it's a unique assimilation of uncooperative people. Okay, I'm sure this is the same in Chennai and Bangalore and other places.
True, sir.
Now, do you mean you demolish the building? Or do you try to carry people with you? What VP Menon did in 1946-47 as Reforms Commissioner to bring 550 states. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting and talking as India today. That's the kind of skill that we need. And I would commend it.
So since still we have 2-3 minutes, one or two more questions I will request you to answer. In what situation can trade wars lead some of the smaller national economies to an economic crisis? Because the countries are looking inward and they want to protect their own interests, and how this is going to impact smaller countries which totally depend on export-oriented issues.
Well, I'm not a trade theory specialist, and I can only, as a business interested person, look back at the last time this happened, which was in 1930s, and it resulted in the depression, the war, and all those things. And the world got into a multilateral cooperation format after the Second World War. It has served us reasonably well, but not perfectly well, because nothing is perfect. And I do believe that we will have to reinvent, and I'm not the right person to answer this, but people with experience in these multilateral institutions can answer this better.
Recently leading industrialists and politicians have made some statement. What they said in general, the GST should be across board cut 5%. I know there is a one way the government want to augment the revenue. They have to give a lot of subsidies and a lot of incentives. But this is one view which has come. So do you think the government should have a look at the GST because it's going to really improve the thinking and the morale of the organizations and institutions?
If I comment on GST, I would be stretching myself beyond my level of expertise. But let me make a general point, which I hope is an answer to the question. When times are very tough, it is somebody's job to look at things holistically. And that is the government's job. I have no doubt that they are doing so. Therefore, if somebody feels that GST should be cut, it's a suggestion that should be made through chambers of commerce, through other associations. But ultimately, we have to go by the judgment of the people who have to run this country totally. I'll give you an example from the Mahabharata, Technically, by Yudhishthira taking part in the game of dice, he was living up to the tenets of a good Kshatriya. By losing, he had to give up what he lost. So Duryodhana was not wrong in asking for it. But people like Drona and Bhishma had to think that they were still sitting there silent. And whose job is it to manage that? And Krishna is the one who came and said, this is the right way for you to look at it. Some people accepted it, some people didn't, and then you had whatever happened. So I think if a suggestion has been made about GST being cut, about something else being done, there must be 150 suggestions. It should be made. That is part of our role as a citizen, but we have to leave it to the good sense of the people who have been given this job right now. It's a very tough job.
Great. Before I will let you go, one last question which we wanted to say. People think a lot of business is going to come to India because now the countries are looking at, the investors are looking at place which is where the COVID is not that much impacted. Actually. And one people think that a lot of business in China is likely to move to India. Now they're thinking, is going to move to India because of the smartness of the country to handle the industry which is coming, or the government should play a very proactive role to create and facilitate a situation where a lot of international companies should come to India, and what should be the role of government and the institutions and the trade organizations in this regards?
The chance of getting business coming out post-COVID from China is a reality. There's an opportunity. Whether it will come will depend on many things that India does. Our track record as a country in doing these things is not very good. We said make in India 5-6 years ago. But apart from making statements about India, we have not done much of make in India. Not as much as one would have hoped. These things take time. And I think if we see this as a long-term opportunity and not get into short-term, that every 3 months we start saying how many factories have closed in China and come here, we got a chance of making it work. But if we put it on the short-term horizon, that we have brought in, we want to make a pompous statement that we have brought in $20 billion worth of investment in the last 3 months after COVID, then I think we are sunk.
Thank you so much, sir. We are reached the time, 7:15 sharp. We want to close it as programmed. Thank you so much. It's a fascinating insight. It's always fantastic to hear your views on the various subjects, and especially the subject which you choose to speak today. And it's a great insight. I'm quite sure tough times are there. It's the future looks very uncertain. This is a time I think each one of us should really follow the government orders and what they've been told to do, abide by them. And this is a time to self-introspect, look into your hobbies, look back, spend more time with the family, and learn something new. Keep learning, keep listening to MMA events, and so that it'll make you stronger and smart enough post lockdown. For all the optimists, what our view is, the lockdown is an opportunity to emerge stronger at all levels, and your insight in this regard is a great value to us, sir. Thank you, viewers. I know you all like the.
Thank you very much, Vijay, to you and your colleagues Sundar and Shiva and all the others who have worked behind. And I hope this was of some value. Thank you.
All the participants, you can type awesome in your message, conveying our sincere appreciation to Mr. Gopalakrishnan for sparing his valuable time. I know he's quite busy doing so many activities. Amongst them, he chose to speak to our people live. Thank you so much, sir. It's a great honor and privilege to have you with us, and privileged actually, sir. And thank you, viewers, who are watching this program live on all the 3-4 sites which you have taken this program to you, live on Zoom, live webinar, live on web. We also live on YouTube, live on Facebook. Keep watching, and that remind you, just join us tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock to listen to all about Instagram by one of the finest speaker, Dania Balasubramaniam, going to be talking to us. Till then, thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good night. Thank you, sir, and namaste. And thank you, Mr. Gopalakrishnan. It's a pleasure to have you with us again.
All the best. God bless you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night. Good night, everyone. Shankar, all okay?
Okay, sir. Fine.
Okay, so it's all set for tomorrow morning, 10:45 will come online.
Yes, sir. Sure.
When everything is fine. In between, what happened? Maybe some sound is coming. Maybe your house, my house, I put it on mute. Only
இல்ல இல்ல
you can't.
ஆக்சுவலா வந்து அவங்க அன்மியூட் பண்றது நம்ம ஆப்ஷன் கொடுத்துருக்கோம். அந்த ஆப்ஷனை வந்து மிஸ்யூஸ் பண்றாங்க.
No, நீங்க பண்ணாதீங்க. Unmute option கொடுக்காதீங்க. Because it's one way communication only. If they want to
நம்ம ஏதாவது பேசணும் அப்படின்னா கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமாயிடுங்கிறதுக்காண்டி நம்ம அந்த ஆப்ஷன் கொடுக்குறோம். அதை அவங்க மிஸ்யூஸ் பண்றாங்க.
Sundar, when you also pass the question, put the name of the person who asked the question, YouTube and Facebook and all. No? So that we recognize the name, it will be nice. Okay? Good. Thank you so much. Great evening once more. Lovely guys. You all coordinated very well. Well done. Okay? Bye.
Okay.
Okay, see you, man. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir.
Take
Bye.
care.